heal as a team, we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Today is February 19th, 2012, and I have a jam-packed show for you today. Now, I originally wasn't going to do the topic that I'm going to be getting into today, but yesterday, after watching the spectacle for a little bit and actually doing a little research because there were things that stuck out to me and just things that I were hearing, tidbits here and there, I decided to dedicate today's show, or a major portion of it at least, to a different view on the death of Whitney Houston. I'm not saying she was, offed and, whatever, anything else. I'm just going to present you a little bit of the evidence. I'm going to give you the references to go do the rest of the research yourself, and you can see some of the interesting things that were going on around her death in the day, the day before, what happened afterwards, just the weird rituals and stuff that were performed, the whole Grammy ritual. So we're going to get into it because it needs to be talked about. And at first I was like, why are they putting this crap on every television station, every network, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, all of them? And I couldn't figure, I was like, something's got to be up. It's got to be more than a distraction. This is a little overboard. So then you go, well, maybe it's ritual, because you have to, if you understand and you've dug that deep, you say, well, now let's look at that aspect. Maybe it is. Let's put the, as Joe likes to say, let's put the tinfoil hat on. Okay. So in doing my research, I came across a lot of the same things that my guest, who I'm going to have on, I specifically wanted to have on today because she knows a lot about mind control. She's done a ton of research into this, and not just mind control, but she also understands the occult. So I had to get, it was amazing because we didn't have a chat about this until earlier today, and when we were talking, it was like we were on the same page without even realizing that we were on the same page. She was already going, the same route I was. So great minds think alike. So I had to bring her on the show and get her opinion on things. So without wasting any more time, I want to introduce my guest. You all know her. She's got her own radio show over on Oracle Broadcasting, and she's part of what I call the dynamic duo over there. Mrs. Cherie Gio from Truth Frequency. Cherie, say hello to the audience.
Hi, Popeye. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for coming on today with me.
Good to be here.
To go over this, because not many people know the full aspect of what's going on. They don't understand everything. They can't look at it and go, well, yeah, I can see how the mind control is connected to these ancient rituals and stuff, because a lot of it is based off of that. And, it's trauma-based mind control. So there's very few people that I could sit and have a conversation with about this and that they wouldn't be going, so I'm glad that you're on, because you're one of the only other researchers I know that have gone as deep as I have into this, because we've had conversations off air about this stuff before. When you first saw the whole Whitney spectacle yesterday, what was your take? Did your red flags go off? Because mine were.
Actually, no. The first time I heard about it, I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to look at it, because I figured it was just a distraction and that it was probably an OD, and that it was just bound to happen with her lifestyle that she had chosen. And it wasn't until I started actually reading about what occurred after she died, the strange behavior of her so-called friends and family after she died and before she died, and then the fact that she was found in the bathtub drowned. We know that Elvis Presley, Judy Garland, and others have also been found dead in a puddle of something, whether it's their own vomit or bathtub or something like that. And then that kind of put a little red flag up, but I still didn't realize what exactly this was about until I saw the pictures of the Grammy performance that Minaj did. And it was sickening to watch. And I don't know if this was actually a murder, but I do know that the elite never let a crisis go to waste. And it was almost as if they knew ahead of time that this was going to happen to her, whether it was murder or not, I don't know. But they knew that this was going to happen and set it up to glean any kind of spiritual power from it that they could, even if that meant keeping the others in line. Because she had a lot of friends in the music industry. She was friends with Michael Jackson, of course. She was friends with Clive Davis. Clive Davis was her handler, and no one can really deny that, because they said that she just happened to meet him in a bar when she was young. And no, everything that happens to people of this caliber happens for a reason. She was put with Bobby Brown for a reason. She was put with Clive Davis for a reason. And even her friends talk about how she didn't want to go along with the Illuminati games. That's why you don't see her acting like Madonna and getting up there and doing these weird rituals. You never saw Whitney Houston do anything like that. And I think even if she did OD, they set her up to OD. They're the ones that get you on the medications and get you on the drugs, and they're the ones that feed you the drugs until you're dead, or that you're so used up that everybody just thinks you're a loser.
Well, the mainstream media is pushing, that whole aspect of, she used to be a junkie and all this other stuff, but they don't talk about the fact that what was found around her were tons of pill bottles, prescription pill bottles. And
well, what's with that, huh? Any addict that you talk to is not going to be throwing their pills everywhere. They keep them.
It sounds almost like it's staged, to be honest with you. And that's why it was funny, because when I started talking to you about it, I was like, well, I know Cherie will, she'll had to have looked at this, and as soon as you told me some of your thoughts about it, and I was like, well, check this out. And that's when I sent you the Vigilant Citizen article, because that's what I did yesterday. When it comes to the occult stuff like this, there's very few people I know that I can go, well, something's up. Let me go talk to anybody else that maybe, you know what I mean? There's you, Chris, Mark Passio, and then I'll go to the Vigilant Citizen website. So I went over to Vigilant Citizen, and lo and behold, he had written a whole article. So I started to go through it, and I was like, yep, that's one of the things that I noticed. And then some of the other things, I heard Freeman. He did an interview on Republic Broadcasting on cable access in Texas the other night. Mike Hansen, the Mike Hansen archives on YouTube, you can see the whole thing. Jack Blood interviewed him, and he was talking about all this stuff. In fact, I'm going to play a little bit Freeman's audio for you. So you can hear him talk for a minute or two, and he's going to bring up some of the freaky, creepy stuff that was going on. But it just, there were things that stuck out, and I knew I had to investigate it further. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to break. When we come back, Cherie and I are going to get into it further. Popeye, why are you wasting my time talking about Whitney Houston? I'm not talking about Whitney Houston. I'm talking about the strange events that occurred around her death. I don't really care about her pop star singing career or anything else, okay? And this needs to be discussed. Now, you all know that that's what my show is for. I discuss things that other people won't. If you don't want to hear it, that's cool. I understand. I respectfully understand that. And feel free to go elsewhere. But if you want to hear the strange things that go on around these celebrity deaths, the strange things that are going on around this one in particular, and some of the weird connections that are there in your face, well, then hang out and listen. Because this stuff is real. This isn't some gossipy crap. This is real. Now, it doesn't matter if you believe in it, ladies and gentlemen. I've said this 1,000 times. It doesn't matter if I believe in it or if Cherie believes in it. These sick pricks believe in it. So one must understand the kind of whacked out things they do. And to understand that Hollywood itself, when you understand that the Hollywood, the culture of, acting and all that goes back to a couple thousands of years, actually, to I guess you could call it like a little clan or whatever of people that's what their thing was like entertainment and stuff like that. I'm not kidding. This goes back. You can look up.
And sacrifice, too.
Yeah.
You can go back to
what's Hollywood? It means Holywood, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think they said that magicians used to use wood made of holly because it had more spiritual power than any other kind of wood. And so it's basically kind of like Mickey sitting there with his, magic wand. That's what Hollywood is. It's all a lie, and it's all about sacrifice. It is. Because they build these people up in your mind as your idols, as your people that you look up to, and then they sacrifice them. First, they kill them slowly with different drugs like crack, which we know they've fed to Whitney for several years. And then they get you to the point where you've debased yourself enough, and then they kill you off as a sacrifice. And it also sends a message to the others that, hey, you don't want to play ball? We'll just end the game for you.
And they do it. Look, Michael Jackson, strange things going on around his death.
Well,
the guy that kills him happens to be a Mason. He only gets
he owned half of Sony ATV. They couldn't let him walk away with half of Sony ATV. They wanted those catalogs, and that's why they changed his. That's why he supposedly changed his will a week before he died, saying that he was going to give his entire catalog to. Oh, what was his name? It wasn't Tommy Mottola. It was somebody else, but he was associated with Tommy Mottola. And so basically, I think that was a mafia thing, disguised as
well, his sister, both of them? I think it was Janet and the other one, LaToya.
I'm sorry?
I think both his sisters and one of his brothers have come out and said that they killed him.
Oh, yeah. Well, and they've also come out and said that, yeah, the father was sexually abusive and that And we have eyewitnesses saying that they saw him going into rooms with old men. And, I mean, it's really sick. And I don't like to think about this kind of stuff. But what's interesting to me about Paris Jackson, who's Michael Jackson's daughter, she put on her Twitter a week before Whitney died that the Illuminati is everywhere. And she drew cryptic pictures of pentagrams, death skulls saying, shh, and human sacrifice. Now, if anybody knows about the rituals that go on in Hollywood, it would be her. She saw them murder her father. She's probably a little messed up in the head, yes, but she knows what's going on. And I think that was a warning. Because Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson were friends for a long time. And that's actually why Whitney cleaned up. After Michael Jackson died, she cleaned up rap. She stopped doing the drugs. She was probably taking the Xanax to kind of as a maintenance medication after all the damage she's done to her body.
To alleviate some of the
anxiety.
Side effects, which is usually anxiety and stuff from coming down off that other crap and being on it for years. And people are going to, again, well, why, who cares about these people? They're famous. Well, that's the point. Why are they famous? Okay? Why are these people famous? Freeman's talked about this. David Icke's talked about this. There's a video called The Truth About Pop Culture on YouTube. Okay, I don't know originally who made it, but the original got yanked off the web a long time ago, and I happen to have copied it, and I re-uploaded it about five or six times to a bunch of different channels, and I asked people to spread it, and they did. So now it's all over the place. Just go on YouTube and look up The Truth About Pop Culture, and it'll pop up. And watch the video. It explains it in detail. It's about, 10 or 12 minutes long. And you'll hear clips of Freeman and stuff in there, and David Icke. All these pop icons that are fed to your children, so your kids emulate these morons, they're all products of trauma-based mind control. That's what Disney is. This stuff goes, they learned a lot out of the information that they gleaned from the Germans when we took over Germany and we took all these scientists over here. Where do you think we learned all this stuff about mind control from? Where do you think the CIA picked up all these quote-unquote interrogation techniques from? We learned a lot of this stuff from the information, not just from books, but from the men themselves. We took these Nazi scientists in.
Honestly, I don't think... Well, and somebody brought up the point, Madonna is so much, more popular than Whitney Houston, and I'm thinking, well, Madonna sucks. I'm sorry, but she sings through her nose. She doesn't really have that much talent, and I've seen her dance. She's not really that good at that either. And compared to Whitney Houston, it's no contest. Whitney Houston had an amazing voice that could out-sing Madonna any day of the week. So why is Madonna more popular than Whitney Houston?
Yeah, and they wouldn't off Madonna because she plays ball. The people that usually get off
ball hardcore
sacrifice are the ones that don't play ball, and they just say, "Okay, we'll kill them and use them in the sacrifice." And there's always weird stuff surrounding the events. In fact, when we come back on the other side of the break, because the break's coming up in a minute, I'll play the clip of Freeman, some of the audio from him in this interview he did. And the other night, and I want to get Freeman on the show myself so I can ask him, his thoughts and everything about it, because he'll be able to get into it more analytically for everybody. But he says the same thing. There was a lot of weird crap that went on around Whitney Houston's death, the day before, the day of, and like the day after. Does anybody know that the day before her daughter almost drowned in the same exact bathtub that she drowned in 24 hours later?
That is really bizarre.
That's coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I really don't.
Not when it comes to these people.
No.
Britney Spears went crazy for a reason, because she was meant to go crazy. I think she was drugged that night that she went all nuts and shaved her head and, was hitting stuff with baseball bats. I think she was drugged. They wanted her to go crazy. That was part of the plan.
It could have been part of the plan, or the only one of the other explanations for it is it could have been her programming breaking down. And maybe that's why they wanted her away from that dude that she was hanging out with, or maybe he was one of her handlers. And that's usually what they do. And ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of what Cherie and I are talking about sounds like, huh? You have to do the research. When we come back from the other side of the break, I'll give you some research materials where you can look up and you can research what Cherie and I are talking about. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. So you're going to ask me, Popeye, why do you expose this type of evil? Why do you talk about it? And I have to answer you with this. For you to understand how and why they would do 9/11, Oklahoma City, the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, pending war in Iran, and anything else that they've done. To understand that they're capable of doing it, you have to understand the depth of the evil that you're dealing with. To understand Boys Town, to understand the conspiracy of silence, the Franklin cover-up, to understand mind control, to understand trauma-based mind control, sex slavery, pedophilia, and all of this, one must understand how deep the rabbit hole goes. And it's my job, I consider it my job, to bring this kind of stuff to you. Other people really don't like to talk about this stuff. It makes people feel uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong. I don't roll around, yeah, I love talking about it. No, it makes me feel just like it makes everybody else feel. But we have to discuss this and get it out on the table so that people can see the depth of evil that we're talking about. Because a lot of people are still stuck into this, well, most of the world is rosy, and there are a few bad things, but it can't be that bad. Our government would never do that. You have to understand it's not that black and white. It's not our government anymore. It was our government, and the last vestiges of that went away the day John Kennedy's head got blown off out in the middle of Dealey Plaza. Since then, it hasn't really been our government. Actually, I would say since like the late 1800s when the Corporation of the United States was actually created. And then everything went from being the United States of America to the United States. But I'm digressing. Anyway, it's important.
Well, if it didn't mean anything, if this is all BS, let's just say it's all BS. It doesn't mean anything. We're just pulling stuff out of our ass. Then why would they kill Stanley Kubrick after he made Eyes Wide Shut? There you go.
Good point, Cherie. Why did Kubrick die shortly after making Eyes Wide Shut? And if you go research it, there's a lot of people. This isn't Cherie or Popeye saying, oh, we think Kubrick was killed. Actually, it was evidence that other people have brought to light that said that he was killed. Why was Hunter S. Thompson killed? Same thing.
Because he knew about the little boys.
Yeah, exactly. He knew about what was going on. People, it irritates me. When you know it's a really good movie. You want to see something that you can watch and it'll kind of give you an idea of what these sick pricks are into. Go watch the movie 8mm with Nicolas Cage. You ever see that movie?
No, I've never seen that one.
I don't remember if he was a cop or a detective. I think he was a PI, and he was working for this old lady who, after her husband died, she wanted to know what kind of sick, twisted crap her husband was into. So she had him investigated, and they come to find out that he was into having snuff films made for him. And they literally went out and killed, whether it would be a hooker or whatever, female, on tape while they were having sex with her, and they would stab the crap out of her and do all sorts of weird...
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, and Nicolas Cage finds this out, and then he gets stalked by, there's all this drama in the movie. But the main point of me bringing that up is it goes to show you how these rich people... these people that have so much money that know that they can buy anybody, their morals are so different than you and me. You know what I mean, Cherie? Even if all this stuff that they worship, if someone says, well, I don't believe any of that, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus. Okay, you don't believe in any of the rich, I understand you don't have to believe it. I'm not forcing you to believe what they believe. I'm just trying to show you
that's what they believe.
And this is why they're so evil. And this is why they have no souls and they're so different than us. Because as children, they were brought up. And when you research this, you come to find out that a lot of the kids of these elites are put through this trauma-based mind control. as a way to get them to stay in line at a young age and play ball and do what they're told. And, once they learn it at a young age, it continues on. This stuff is the topic of mind control is so vast. It's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, we could sit here and pontificate on it for hours and hours and hours. But I want to get back focused a little bit on the Whitney Houston debacle. Now, again, yesterday, what really set up red flags for me was the amount of stations it was on. And I know the mainstream media soaks that up, but it was just, I noticed to the point where I actually took screenshots of CNN, Fox, and MSNBC because it was just so overboard. And they all had live streaming of it and everything else. And then I threw on the live stream, and I was watching one of the people sing, and what's his name, Tyler Perry, gets up, and he's dressed. I said to my wife, why is he dressed like a monk? He was wearing like some monk suit, black with that's what it looked like. Maybe Japanese style suit, whatever.
Like a friar outfit?
Yeah, more kind of like maybe like a Japanese monk. Like the button at the front, something like that.
Oh,
with like a red sash around the waist. Just go if you see if people see the video coverage of it yesterday. There was just certain colors were very prevalent and I was like, it almost looks like a friggin' ceremony. So that's when I went to Vigilant Citizen's website. Now, the article title on his website is, let me give it to everybody so they can look it up while we talk. But, of course.
Who killed Whitney Houston? Or no, that was a different one.
Yeah, I have it open in one of my browser windows. Here it is. It's titled, just go to vigilanttcitizen.com, and it's called Whitney Houston in the 2012 Grammy Awards Mega Ritual. And he sums it up, to give you the summary at the bottom of what the whole article is. And, I'll throw a few things out there throughout the rest of the show here with Cherie. But he sums it up pretty well at the end where, he says, in conclusion, it points that Whitney Houston's death may have been a blood sacrifice and that the 2012 Grammy Awards had occult ritualistic elements within it. Even if all these events were not deliberately planned by industry handlers, they all contribute to a clear and disturbing picture of the music industry. And then it goes on, blah, blah, blah. Now, it's very good that he said it points to a disturbing and clear picture of the music industry because, as Cherie pointed out to me during the break, and I had known this and I had heard it, but I didn't know there was a YouTube video where somebody threw it up there. Shaka Khan, now, of course, if you go to CNN, the interview with her is cut up into two small pieces. The one she did with Piers Morgan, a couple days after Whitney's death. Now, Shaka Khan, famous singer, music industry, married to Prince, who, by the way, I will play you the clip. You can later in the show, you'll hear him. It was 1998. He was out of the country. He was, I forget what country he was in. He was performing, and he says Bin Laden gonna, bomb the towers or whatever. I've played the clip before, but I'll play it again. But that's her husband. Shaka Khan's married to him. Okay, and listen to what she had to say about the music industry. Check this out.
So-called music industry is such a demonic thing. It sacrifices people's lives and their essences. And at the drop of an eye.
How did you feel when you heard that?
Now, hold on. I'm going to rewind that just one more time so you can hear her say it again. Because just in case you think I'm crazy.
Such a demonic industry is such a demonic thing. It sacrifices people's lives and their essences. And at the drop of an eye.
It sacrifices people's lives and their essences. Now, where have I heard that term essence? It's kind of like soul. Cherie, when I've done research on these sick bastards, and they do their little occult rituals and stuff, isn't that one of the things that they're trying to pretty much absorb? Is the person's soul, their essence, their energy? That's part of it.
Are you talking about the satanic ritual abuse type of thing? Yeah, that is the entire point of it, is to either traumatize the person so severely that their brain shuts off.
So didn't you hear Shaka Khan admit to that right on air? Mm-hmm. Isn't that what I just thought I heard her admit to, right?
Well, and the only reason people don't listen to her is because they think, oh, it's Chaka Khan. That was 15, 20 years ago. Who is she? She's nobody now. Well, that's why she's able to say things like that and get away with it. Because nobody listens to her really anymore.
Yeah.
If it were somebody like
about her anyway, she probably did drugs. She's just a washed-up artist. Blah blah blah.
That's what I said. Actually, on my show, I feel really bad about it now, but I called her a crack whore. See, I didn't know that she had cleaned up. I didn't. And I think I just fell into the trap of, this doesn't matter. But then I heard that, and I was like, wow. The fact that she's even coming out and saying that, and she's been in the music industry for decades, so she knows. She knows.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Cherie and I went right over the bumper music because I was trying to have her squeeze in as much as she could right up to the end of the bumper because I didn't want to interrupt there. And being the radio pro that she is, she was able to get everything in right before she got cut off. So, there's just too much information for us to be talking about. Even 2 hours isn't enough time. 3 hours isn't enough time. You need to research this stuff yourself. I want you to be inspired by what you hear from me and maybe how I bring it across to you. And you say, okay, I'm inspired enough to at least go check it out with an open mind and not be a schmuck. Okay? And you go look and you actually see what's going on. Now, I promised I'd give you guys some references to go do some research through. Again, anybody that tells you any type of information like this should always give you resources. If somebody tries to force their own opinion down your throat and never gives you outside resources to back it up, then there's a problem with that opinion. So here you go. First thing I would do, and not even the internet, well, I'll give you a few books. You can use the internet to purchase them, but books, good old-fashioned books to read. First two, Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, The Transformation of America. The Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips. The second one, Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor. Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor. Now that's just two books. I won't railroad you with a ton more of stuff, but if you get a chance, you can also read Ike's book, The Biggest Secret. There's some stuff in there that you might not agree with. That's fine. Nobody has to agree with everything, but there's a massive section where he covers a lot about the mind control. But you have to read O'Brien's book and Bryce Taylor's book first to be able to understand the level of this, okay? For real. If you reading Kathy's book alone, which is it's not that big, you'll probably get nauseous reading it. You'll be just stunned at what she comes out with. And it's incredible information, ladies and gentlemen. But I urge you to push on. Okay, third book, and then we're going to move on from the books, is an important book, hard book to find. You've heard me talk about it before. The Franklin Cover-Up. The Franklin Cover-Up. Excellent, excellent book. I have a copy of it myself. You need to get a physical copy of this book. It is very, very important. The Franklin Cover-Up. In fact, I'm going to play the opening audio from the movie. I'm going to play a clip of it for you. And don't worry, we have hour two. I'm going to play that audio from Freeman for you about Whitney Houston. But I want to make sure you guys have this information. Now, moving on to websites. There's 3 websites right off the top. I mean, you can research anything you want on federaljack.com. There's always, I have multiple different things. I even have a mind control section. Just go in the search bar and type in mind control or MK Ultra, and it'll bring up tons and tons of articles. But if you really, really want to get hardcore and you want to find out where some of the stuff that I use for references, I suggest that you go to Mark Passio's website, What on Earth is Happening, because Mark gets into this. I suggest you go to Vigilant Citizen. I suggest you just bookmark Vigilant Citizen and use it as a resource like you would Federal Jack. Now, I repost his articles and have actually been in contact with him, the guy that writes, and, the webmaster. He's not really, he's kind of radio shy, I guess, which is cool. Not everybody wants to go on air. He wants to stick to doing his writing thing. But I told him I would give, him plugs because his work is amazing. And he's got, obviously the guy puts a lot of time into analyzing this stuff, and he understands the whole aspect of it. So it's very good resource. I give it my thumbs up. Cherie, you and Chris also talk a lot about this stuff. You've done a lot of articles yourself about mind control on Truth Frequency. What is it, truthfrequencynews.com?
Mm-hmm. That's our news website, and our radio site is truthfrequencyradio.com.
And what's Freeman's site? Freeman.tv or whatever? Or
Freeman, I think it's Freeman Perspective. I don't have the...
Just, ladies and gentlemen, just go whatever search engine, just look up Freeman or go over to Oracle. He's a host
or the Freeman Perspective.
Yeah, I'm sure they got a link to his site over there. Freeman is a wealth of information on this stuff. I mean, he is that guy is amazing. The information he has packed in his noodle is just, I mean, that's worth, there's priceless. There is no price you could put on the information he has.
He's the best example of principles before personalities, because you notice he doesn't get into the beef that he has with other people. He just brings the information and puts it out there in a coherent way and then just walks away.
Yeah, Freeman's a cool dude. I like him. He's a cool dude. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with every little thing under the sun that he says. But when it comes to especially the mind control stuff, he's one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever run into. That just, it's amazing. I mean, you could sit down and ask him any aspect of this occult type, the occult aspect of it, the trauma-based mind control aspect of it, and how they tie together. And he can just go. And when you research what he's talking about, it's incredible because you're like, wow. So, again, another great resource is Freeman. And none of these guys, Christian Cherie, nobody, Mark Passio, none of these people pay me any money or give me anything to promote them. Again, I use them as resources for myself. So I suggest you guys go check out this stuff on your own. Don't just take my word for it. I don't want people to just say, well, Popeye and Cherie said to go listen, to go research this, and I was listening to their show, and they said that, that blah, 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 so I just believe it. I'm not going to research it, even though they said to go research it. No, dude, take the time. Get off your butt. If you have an hour, go on your phone when you're on the crapper. Everybody has smartphones. Google, take the time that you're in the John for 20 minutes. Google Vigilant Citizen and look at a couple articles and just read through them. For real.
And you'll find that it's actually worse than we're saying.
Oh, yeah.
It is worse than we're saying. We're just scraping the surface of this. This has to do with murder, sex slaves, pedophilia, all kinds of...
He's got a whole plethora of info on this. If you, like everything Cherie just listed and more, the guy over at Vigilant Citizen he put a bunch of like his best articles explaining what goes on with this stuff into like an ebook format. And it's like $10. So if you want to help him out, go help him out, support him, buy the ebook, and then, give the ebook to, print out copies of all the stuff and give it out, do whatever. I guarantee you'll be like, and it's better than me and Cherie sitting here for 2 hours continuously, going over the same stuff, trying to give you different examples, because honestly, there is no way that there would be enough time to cover it all. It's that deep. It's taken me years to research the mind control aspect. Years. Mm-hmm. And Cherie and Chris as well. I mean, Cherie, you wrote that one article, that one academy where they had the kids rolling around in their own puke and their own feces and urine and stuff, and it was just, the kids were just dropping and willingly doing it without even a second's thought.
I didn't realize it was a cult until after I started researching the MK Ultra documents, the mind control projects, Monarch, and I realized what they're doing to these children. Well, I call them children. They're 17, 18, 19 years old. What they're doing to them is trauma-based mind control, and it's basically depersonalization and demasculinization of the men. And it is all mind control, but people don't mind hearing about that all day long, as long as you're just talking about the crazy Christians and what they're doing. But what's happening in the entertainment industry is very similar, but much more effective for the poor people that are caught up in this program, because at least at the one in Texas, you can drop out if you want, you can move on with your life. But once you start working for the Illuminati, making these records, making these music videos with a bunch of dead girls everywhere like Kanye West, then you owe them for the rest of your life. You belong to them. And people need to realize that it's not just about Satanism or satanic ritual abuse. That it has to do with mind control under the cover of satanic ritual abuse. And even Bryce Taylor mentions that in her book, Thanks for the Memories, which I read last week. It took me all week to read it. It's a very long book. And I figured even if 30% of what she was saying was true, then this book needed to be read. And I couldn't even make it through most of it without feeling like I was going to throw up, because what she was saying was not only along the same lines as what Kathy O'Brien has said, but it's also along the same lines as what other people who are in Hollywood have said happens to them. I don't want people touching me anymore.
Corey Feldman even came out and said one of the things that led to his the other one's death, because him doing drugs all the time and ODing eventually, was all the pedophilia and all the stuff that goes on to the child stars. And he out and out said it, that there's pedophilia going on. And this is a guy that was like a famous 80s star, and he said it. And it's amazing how little attention that gets paid. They don't talk about it. They just don't pay any attention to it. And that's why we need to discuss it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the top of the hour break. Cherie and I are back. Hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to play the audio from Freeman and more. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on today's Sunday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. And before I get into it, I just want to remind you all to make sure you stay tuned in after my show. Listen to my buddy Joe Joseph and my other buddy Tim Watts. And if I remember correctly, Sundays are their Conspiracy Chronicle days, so stay tuned. All right, I want to get back into it with my guest, Cherie Gio, 50% of Truth Frequency over on Oracle. And you guys have your own websites, correct, Cherie? Like one for news and stuff and the other one for the radio show?
For the news site, it's truthfrequencynews.com. For the radio site, it's truthfrequencyradio.com. And
I urge you guys to go listen to Chris and Cherie. They have a pretty awesome show. I like it. Interesting stuff.
Thank you. Airs on Oracle Broadcasting every Saturday night. And
you guys also help produce Christopher Everard's show on Sunday, correct?
Yes. Yes, which is coming up in about an hour.
Yep. So if you don't catch it live, make sure you get Chris's archives. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, next week, Sunday, Chris will be coming on with me. So he's going to be coming on. We're going to be going over his new movie. And if we have enough time, maybe even discuss some of the other stuff, like his Illuminati movies. And one of my all-time personal favorites is his documentary on Princess Diana. If you're not convinced that Diana was murdered, watch his movie. I guarantee you'll be convinced by the time you're done, without a doubt. So make sure you tune in next Sunday, because Christopher Everard is going to be hanging out with me. And this Friday, I have my buddy Mark Passio coming on, and we're going to be getting into the occult and rituals and other things. So strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be an interesting 2 weeks. All right. So getting back into the whole Whitney Houston thing, Cherie, Freeman, as we were talking about the first hour, he's a great example of somebody that understands this, in its entirety. He understands all, because to understand the satanic ritual abuse thing, a lot of people get put off by that. Oh, you're saying Satanism and you wacky people, or what do you think, they run around in the woods with robes and stuff? Well, maybe they do, and maybe they don't. Maybe that is just a cover for a way that they mask the ritual, I don't want to say ritual abuse, the trauma-based mind control. Each piece of this mind control has a different aspect to it. Again, you got to read Bryce Taylor's book and Kathy O'Brien's book to understand this. There's trauma-based mind control. Then there's the whole harmonics and visual stuff that they do. That's a lot of what NASA does. There's on certain bases, whether it's an Air Force base or a NASA facility, or a naval base, they have spots where NASA runs this building, and in this building they do all sorts of weird crap, right, Sherry?
Yes. And although I haven't been able to really verify that, you just keep hearing the same thing from people that don't have anything to do with each other, and you just kind of get the picture after a while that even if you just want to look at all the black sites that they have where they're torturing people in foreign countries, do you think that they would just come out and tell you that? No, these things have to be uncovered in order for people to know about them, like the Tuskegee experiments. Whenever the Tuskegee experiments happened, you think everybody just knew that it was going on? No, it took 20, 30 years before a journalist finally wrote a bunch of articles about it, that people really realized what was going on with that. And the same is true for all of these trauma-based mind control programs. Whether you're in a Christian organization that's using this method, or you're in or you're in the music business, or if you're in the entertainment industry. Even Judy Garland was born into vaudeville. A lot of people don't realize that most of these people that have died in strange coincidences have been involved with entertainment their entire lives. And so they grew up in this Alice in Wonderland type of scenario. And so looking at that, it almost makes it normal for them to be acting the way they do. Because if you grew up in a psycho ward, you wouldn't know how to act in a normal manner. You would think that psychopathy was normal. And that's where a lot of these people in the entertainment business are right now, is they think that this is normal to dress up like the Whore of Babylon and, go through this weird ritual with the Pope and everything, that they think that that's normal. This is Hollywood. But it's not. Yeah,
a lot of them think they're just playing dress up. They don't even realize that they're being used as a tool in a ritual, which that's another thing that Kathy explains, that a lot of these people that, like these pop stars and stuff, they're a victim of this Monarch mind control, Project Monarch. And then that's, again, Vigilant Citizen's a great website to do research about Project Monarch. This stuff is real, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a joke. This is not me and Cherie just pulling stuff out of our asses. This is the real deal. This is how they're able to do stuff. I mean, this is what they do to other human beings. This is how effed up these people are, that they're willing to do this to other humans.
Well, and also it's about social programming as well. Mm-hmm. Because if you notice, Whitney Houston was a fantastic singer. In the early 90s, she was convinced by Bobby Brown to be in The Bodyguard. She didn't want to do that movie. She didn't want to be in Hollywood. She didn't want to have this Hollywood lifestyle. She wanted to be a singer. And they convinced her to do the movie. And after that, she felt like she was a slave to the people that controlled her. Because you have to sign contracts with these people. And I mean, it even goes so far as to say you have to eat McDonald's like a certain amount in public. It's just really weird things that they have to do. And it makes me wonder if they're not just trying to promote certain lifestyles in people. Like Britney Spears. Oh, yeah,
it's social engineering. That's exactly what it is. Because they build these characters up, which is what they are. They're not real people. The people that emulate this character are real, but Lady Gaga herself, that persona, is not real. The girl Stephanie that is Lady Gaga is real. It's not. It's this fake. They build up this fake like rock star, for lack of a better term, and then they get people to emulate everything they do, and then they get that whatever the rock star does, or pop or rap or whatever, whatever this mogul does, this icon. And they do it with sports stars too, in the movie industry and TV. Whatever this person does, the general public does. You know, a couple of years ago, they admitted, if you go back and look at commercials about 5 years ago, as opposed to commercials today, you'll notice one thing, that there were certain actors that didn't do commercials, and now a lot of these mainstream actors are in commercials. Well, a couple of years ago, and you can look this up while we still have a free and open internet, a couple of years ago, these PR industries and these television studios admitted that they were changing over the way they did commercials, and that they were actually going to have these TV stars and music stars and movie stars in the commercials, so that it was almost like people could not tell the difference between the movies, that the character in the movie or the character in the TV show and this commercial. And it would be, sometimes they would be themselves, or sometimes they would be the character in the show or movie. And if you notice, over the past 3 or 4 years, these commercials have drastically changed, where now you're seeing a lot of these mainstream stars doing commercials, where, yes, there's always been mainstream stars in commercials, but you didn't see that many. And again, commercials, PR, all that stuff is mind control. That's all putting ideas into your head. Remember when they used to have the old cigarette commercials? I have the video clip saved on my hard drive of there was I think it was Chesterfield. It was an old commercial for cigarettes, and it was the Flintstones, Barney and Fred, smoking cigarettes. And like, oh, I love smoking a Chesterfield. It makes me so relaxed. These cigarettes are great. They have a zingy flavor and all this. I mean, just look at Flintstone cigarette commercial on YouTube. For real. All this stuff, PR, all this crap commercials, all that stuff, there's a reason these people have to go to college and study psychology before they can go work at a PR firm. There's a reason for that. We're going to break. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. All right, so we have been traveling down the rabbit hole tonight. And I want to explain something really quick to you guys. The name, Down the Rabbit Hole, from my radio show, was inspired by Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. Now, why did that? I've explained on air before that a lot of it has to deal with, kind of like stepping through the mirror into the Matrix, that kind of thing, like you're in Bizarro world. But there was the other aspect of it was, I wanted to, through the name, I wanted to kind of bring you guys or give you guys the idea of the depth of what you were stepping into. And I didn't want to call it Through the Looking Glass, because to me, that didn't get across the depth. And that's where the idea of like a bottomless pit of evil comes from. And that's where we are. We're in this deep, dark, maybe it's not even a pit of evil, but a deep, dark pit of information. And inside of this pit, there are sections that are where you see how evil things can be. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And the urge for me to get this type of information out, the reason I named it Down the Rabbit Hole is a way of, it's kind of like an homage to the type of information we discuss. The stuff that nobody else really wants to talk about or is afraid to talk about, or for whatever reason they don't discuss it. Maybe people are going to think I'm crazy and I'll never get picked up. Well, then we shouldn't. That's a form of censorship, and it's self-censorship. It's not a good idea. It doesn't matter,
or they think it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it does matter when the reason why most people are so asleep is because they're still in this weird Stockholm syndrome kind of complex where they're stuck in the Matrix, for lack of a better term. They're plugged in, and they think that these elites aren't really as evil as people are trying to make them out to be, or that it's just a Satanism versus Christianity thing, and it's not. It goes a lot deeper than that. And the only thing I can really compare it to, all these poor people that are in this trap in Hollywood or in the music industry, is it reminds me of a bunch of kids that are in an abusive family, and they can't really tell anybody about what daddy does behind closed doors, but they all know and they all feel it, and they're all scared to death that they're going to be next if they talk about it. And so I see these people, and I see a bunch of mind-controlled robots, and then the ones that aren't wanting to go along with things are set up to fail, whether it's with drugs, alcohol, prostitutes. They'll find your weakness, and they'll go after it and go after it and go after it and supply you with that weakness so they can set you up later to either go to jail or to be killed.
Well, it's like we were discussing during the break. Sheen's a good example. You know, Charlie Sheen comes out questioning 9/11 truth, bringing mainstream media attention to the fact that some crazy, you know, Hollywood star is questioning the official story of 9/11, and he does all these official videos where he does I'm questioning the president and all this, you know, I have a couple questions for the president and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden he goes off the deep end, and he happens to do it live on Jones's show on air. Now, a lot of that looked like a psyop to me. Not saying Jones was pulling a psyop off, because if you watch the video of that day when he was talking to him, you could see in his eyes he was like, he
was freaking out because he didn't know what to do.
So it's almost like they set Charlie up to make him look like a dick, and in turn make the rest of the truth movement look like dicks, because
I'll tell you what they did.
The mainstream media would focus on Jones and say, see, he's the king of the alternative nutbags. And look, you know, even if people are going to say, Jones, I don't listen to him, it doesn't matter if you do or not. The point is the mainstream media would use him as the target, and they would say, look, you know, look at this, blah, 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 which is kind of what they did. And of course, Jones was smart enough to, you know, fight back. Like when he went on he kind of info jammed The View and stuff, and that was cool or whatever. But the point is, he was caught off guard. And this whole Charlie Sheen thing made a lot of people in the truth community, it alienated people, because they were like, oh, great, you know, this guy, people are going to think he represents us, you know, crackhead,
exactly,
you know, crazy people. And it was some of this
discredit
stuff. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's where I was going.
What I think happened is they sent him a briefcase full of coke and speed, had him just go completely nuts with it, and then put him on the show. I think that's what happened. They loaded him up to the gills with drugs and then unleashed him on Alex Jones's show to discredit the movement, to discredit all the information that they had both put together, and to kind of screw up something that they had going that was going to bring attention to 9/11 from the entertainment community, at least, and to show that it is legitimate. They wanted to discredit that completely, and the best way to do that was to reel Charlie back in with the same methods that they've used to control him for years, which is hookers and coke.
And then now you have YouTube as an added bonus, so he starts doing his own crazy stuff. Now, granted, I think it was ridiculous that they fired him because he called his boss by his real name and not by his stage name. Okay, and they used it as he's being anti-Semitic, and they blew it up out of proportion. And a lot of people are
I think there was something else that happened, and that's a cover story.
That's what I'm saying. I think that was a cover, and it was either he pissed them off really, like he pissed in their cornflakes, or it's like what you brought up the point of maybe this was set up on purpose to fail. You know what I mean? Which is actually, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, Sheree, that makes more sense.
Well, that's what they've done with everybody else. It doesn't matter who you are in the entertainment industry. If you go against your handlers, then they will set you up. They'll make you look like an idiot, or make you look so unstable that nobody would even believe you if you tried to come out about all this. I mean, if let's just say Charlie Sheen knows about all the Illuminati stuff, he knows about the sex slaves, he knows about the pedophilia and everything. Do you really think they would let him get up there and actually talk about it? Hell no. He would be dead, just like everybody else who's tried to talk about it is dead. And
look at Joe Paterno. He knew where he knew things. He knew more than he knew. Even the media was like, does Joe Paterno know more than he's letting on with the whole Penn State and thing? And I said, I guarantee you that guy he's in trouble. He got cancer. And I said, if he's dead in a month, they offed his ass. And within a month, he was dead. Now, I wonder why. because Paterno knew that this whole thing with Penn State is connected into this same thing. The whole Boys Town thing, the Franklin cover-up, the sex slaves, all this stuff, it's all connected. It's
and
all
people don't
connected.
realize that. And also the whole cancer thing. People think, oh, well, he died of cancer, so that wasn't offing him. No, they've ever since 1933, they've known that viruses cause cancer, and they know how to use radiation to radiate the hell out of it to make it even more aggressive.
Read Dr. Mary's Monkey, or go listen to my interviews with Judith Baker about it. They developed weaponized cancer that could kill you in 28 days.
They know how to kill you within a month. They can kill you with a heart attack. They can kill you with cancer. The heart attack only takes 5 minutes. The cancer takes
the heart attack gun. Just go on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, look up the CIA's heart attack gun, and you'll see them admitting. I think it was back in the 70s. They were admitting. I think it was during the church. It might have been during the little church hearings that were going on, if I remember correctly. But they admitted that they had a gun that they could shoot you with a poison dart, and the dart would be made out of ice. So the poison would be encased in it. It would go into you. The ice would melt. No more dart. Poison would go into your system. You'd die of a heart attack. It would look like natural causes. Done. Go look it up. All right, we're going to break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. More when we come back. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I promised you I would play you this clip about what Freeman was talking about really quick. So I want to get this audio on air really quick. Get it out, because I keep pushing it back and pushing it back. We only got 2 segments left. And I'm going to play an audio clip again for the listeners that are new to the show today. Either at the end of this segment, beginning of the last segment, dealing with the Franklin cover-up. So you can see what I'm talking about is the real deal. But let me get into what Freeman was talking about here on Republic Broadcasting the other night. And he was explaining the weird stuff that was going on around Whitney Houston's death. And like the day before she died, the day she died, and the day after, this whole ritual thing, the Grammys, and all this other stuff. So here, listen to what Freeman has to say.
The wardrobe malfunction of Janet Jackson with Justin Timberlake, where she bared her breast at the Super Bowl, another high-profile ritual sort of situation. But what I was really trying to lie down was the timing of the death of Whitney Houston, because it was following this in-bulk ritual, which is known as the Witches' Sabbath. And it's the moment in between the solstice and the equinox. And so it's like this midpoint where the witches do their rituals. So then we have Madonna with her full-on ritual going on with this situation. But then her being St. Bridget, being the goddess Bridget, being the goddess of water and hills, we find that at the Whitney Houston death, as strange as this may sound, the night before Whitney Houston's death, Bobby Christina, her daughter, was found drowning in that same bathtub on alcohol and prescription drugs. They got concerned when there was no response from the door. They kicked down the door. They found Bobby Christina, Whitney Houston's daughter, nearly drowned in the bathtub that Whitney Houston was then later to die in. Now, Whitney was found submerged in water but not drowned. And they're blaming it on the prescription drugs once again and alcohol. So when Bobby Christina, her daughter, wanted to witness and see her mother, one last time, they wouldn't allow her. She had a massive anxiety attack, and they took her to the hospital again. So Bobby Christina was brought to Sinai Cedar twice that weekend, and in between these 2 trips, her mother died, right? In the same bathtub, underwater, which are all symbolic of this goddess Bridget and the hills, and they were, of course, in the Beverly Hills Hilton. And now the curious thing about that is that Whitney Houston died at 3:55 p.m. and a party was scheduled by Clive Davis.
That's 13, if anybody's adding up the numbers.
That's right. Clive Davis is one that consistently throws the pre-Grammy party at these events. And they knew Whitney had died, but Clive Davis demanded, according to sources in the news, saying that he demanded that they keep Whitney's body in the room above them, in a separate room, in a different room. He disallowed them to move the body out of the hotel until the party was over. Now,
Freeman, a lot of the people, I saw Tom Hanks and others, a super star-studded event at the Beverly Hills Hotel where I've actually been before, and they were all very confused about to why this was going on while she was upstairs, why they were celebrating her mentor, Clive Davis, which I guess we could get into him a little bit. So this is all stuff that the news didn't cover. You didn't hear any of this on the news, but this is all highly documented. And I guess we should say, and Mac, you've studied this a little bit too, that we know that the elites have a very peculiar way of worshiping the universe. They have really carried these kind.
And Jack gets into, I don't want to, continue and rip off the rest of this stuff. If you guys want to see it, go to the Mike Hansen Archives channel so you can go view it in its entirety, at the original source. But go watch this interview. It's really good. And I got to tell you, Freeman hits the nail right in the head. And he just goes into more and more of the weird crap that was going on. Like you heard Jack say, he says, that a lot of the people that were at this party were all freaked out that they were doing this party while Whitney Houston was lying dead in a hotel room right above them.
The baptismal sacrifice.
Body. Well, that shows that there's something going on, right? I mean, people. You can say, well, that's just strange behavior, Popeye. No. How come it's only these people that have all these connections with all this occultism and all this crap are the ones that do all the strange stuff? And I'm doing air quotes.
We're not allowed to notice it.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, and if you notice it, you're like a leper because you bring it up and you talk about it. No, this stuff is going on. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It doesn't matter if you were raised as a Christian and I don't believe any of that crap. Well, that's fine. I'm not trying to force their beliefs on you, but you have to know how the enemy thinks because this is what they worship. A lot of this stuff goes back, to 5,000-6,000 years ago. And you see this
and you think, a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just play acting. That's all they're doing. They're just play acting, and none of this that they're doing means anything. Okay, well then why do they get away with making millions and millions and millions of dollars off these people and then killing them and then making more money off of them dead? Why is it so pervasive that celebrities die young and celebrities die horrible deaths, and that's just the way it is? And I don't think that's the way it is. I think that's the way it's made.
Oh, it's set up that way. It's done on purpose because if you understand that a lot of these people they're created for specific things. Kathy even explains that, Kathy O'Brien, she explains that some of these people, they're made specifically just to do rituals. When you go look up Project Monarch, again, a lot of this conditioning and stuff is so that they can use these people in rituals throughout their lifetime. Look at Madonna.
And
from the time she was young
they're sacrificing.
Right now.
A lot of people say, oh, well, if they were sacrificing babies and children, we'd know about it because, there'd be all these missing babies and children. Okay, well, there is. Do you know how many children go missing every year? Even if 1% of these children that go missing are used in rituals where they're sacrificed, then
I know the number's over 80,000 children go missing each year.
A year.
It's like some absurd high number, over 80,000. I don't remember the exact number. I know it's more than 80,000, and it might even be in the 100,000, the couple 100,000 mark. The point is, people, you don't hear about this stuff. And Cherie hit it right on the head. What do you think they're doing with these little kids? Again, you start to research this stuff. A lot of it deals with there are sacrificial rituals being, or I guess I should say being created. They're sacrificial rituals being performed and actually being carried out. That would be the better way to put it, because that's exactly how it is. They're carrying out these rituals, and some of them date back 5,000-6,000 years. And again, you have to learn, you have to put apart, if you're a heavily religious person, you have to put your religious dogma to the side and understand that history, 5,000-6,000 years ago is what's coming into play, because this is the stuff that they're worshiping some of the very same things that these people did 5,000-6,000 years ago. So the only way you're going to be able to understand them is to be, and why they would do such weird things. People, why would they go to Bohemian Grove, Popeye? Why would they kill kids in a ritual? Because it's the energy released. It's why they particularly use little boys over little girls. And why boys are raped more than little girls. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because the energy released, because it's more painful for the boy, goes up the spine, and it comes out at the base of the neck. Okay, and during this ritual, they absorb it. That's what whether it's real or not, it doesn't matter.
At this point, you have to understand. We can get. I mean, that'll matter down the road, and we should continue down and research that. But just to get your foot in the door, for you to understand, it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. They do. And that's why they're different than the rest of us. That's why they don't care about killing 1 million people in Iraq. That's why they don't care about killing all these active duty military soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, National Guardsmen. They don't care. They don't care about veterans. Why do you think they don't care about the people in this country? They don't care. Why do you think they could care less about 3,000 people on 9/11 or Oklahoma City or the first World Trade Center bombing or the Marine barracks or anything else? Why do you think they could care less about any of that stuff? I don't understand how they could just kill like that, Popeye. I couldn't do that because you're not them. And this is who they are. This is the kind of sick, twisted shit that they're into, and you have to understand that. You don't have to respect it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to believe in it. But you have to understand what they do believe in, so you can understand where they're coming from, or else you do not stand a chance, ladies and gentlemen, of being able to stand up against this. And that's just the plain truth. All right, we're going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes with the final segment of today's episode, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the final segment of today's edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. And I'm going to play 2 clips really quick in this final segment. And I want to say thanks to Cherie for coming on and hanging with me and, giving me that flow that I needed to be able to get this kind of information out. A lot of times this type of stuff, it comes off a lot easier for you, the listener, for your ears, if it comes out in a nice, even flow rather than just listening to someone rant about it. And without Cherie, that wouldn't have been possible today. So, Cherie, I take a virtual bow to you, dear. Thank you very much. Give a plug for you and Chris one more time for your websites and your show and stuff.
Well, you can catch us on Oracle Broadcasting every Saturday night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Central Standard Time. TruthFrequencyRadio.com.
Awesome. All right.
And you can also check out our news site, Truth Frequency
News. Oh, that's right. Yes. Tell them your news site again. Go ahead.
TruthFrequencyNews.com.
And you're with YouTube, because you have a YouTube channel, correct?
Yes. It's YouTube.com/TruthFrequency, I believe.
And Twitter.
And Twitter. We don't use Twitter as much as we do Facebook, though.
Oh, Facebook, too. Go ahead. Tell them Facebook.
Oh, it's just Chris Geo or Truth Frequency.
There you go. There's a bazillion ways to listen to them or get in touch with them, ladies and gentlemen. And I urge you, they have a really cool show. Even before I was on air, I used to listen to Chris and Cherie. So it's kind of cool for me to, I mean.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's why it's funny, because I listened to you guys off air back in the day, and now I hang out with you guys. It's like sitting there, put my feet up on the desk and having coffee with you. You know what I mean? Back in the day, I used to listen to you and Chris. So,
well, you're like family to us. So,
well, you guys are as well. I appreciate everything you guys do, and you guys are really awesome people. Off air, as human beings, some people are one way on air and another way off air, but you guys really are genuinely cool human beings. So,
thank you.
All right, we got a few minutes. Well, we got about 8.5, 9 minutes left. So first thing, before I forget, I want to tell people where they can go listen to the interview with Freeman. It was Jack Blood doing some, I guess he's got a public access show or whatever over on Republic Broadcasting. So I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Go to the Mike Hansen Archives on YouTube. Mike Hansen Archives, all one word. Give Mike a big thumbs up. He does a lot of hard work bringing information out to people. And go check it out. It's called Jack Blood Frontline Texas, and that's all you need to know, because then you'll see it right there on the upload list. It's about 58 minutes long, but listen to what they're talking about in regards to Whitney and all this mind control stuff. And there's a lot to pay attention to. And Cherie and I tried to jam years worth of information into a 2-hour broadcast today, ladies and gentlemen. But by no means did we even barely skim the surface.
Right. So it goes so deep that you have to spend several months reading about it in order to figure out the different patterns and recognize them and piece together a bunch of different people's accounts.
A lot of people want that instant gratification. I I have, close friends of mine and family members are like, but can you sum it up, in like 200 characters or less, basically? You know what I mean? And it's impossible. You can't. You can't. It's such a vast, grand thing. You can't. That's why I try to empower people to go do it themselves. Because, again, if you listen to a radio show host or something and they say you should only listen to me and don't research it yourself, the guy's probably disinfo douchebag or just full of himself. Any good researcher or host should tell the people that he's passing the information on to where they can go research it themselves. And I always try to do that with everybody. Again, I go back to hour one, listen in the archives, listen to all the books that I mentioned, the websites. Research, ladies and gentlemen. It's the best thing you can do. Educate yourselves. Now, really quick, I want to play you this audio clip real quick. Have you ever heard of John Todd? Some people say he's been discredited or whatever,
but he claimed to have been involved in the Church of Satan.
Yeah, and the Illuminati and everything else, and he was supposedly in the music industry. Well, back in the 70s, he did a talk about the music industry. And I just thought it would be interesting because of all the stuff that we've talked about and some of the pagan rituals that these people do partake in, and how you heard Shaka Khan say it's demonic. This is what John Todd had to say about the music industry. Check this out real quick.
On a council of 13 people that take orders only from the Rothschild Tribunal in London, which they claim they take their orders directly from Lucifer.
I was the manager of Zodiac Productions, which Zodiac Productions, its name's been changed since then. I'm not even sure what they call it now, but it's the largest music conglomerate in the world. It owns RCA Records, Columbia Records, Motown Records, owns almost all the concert booking agencies in the United States. And that's not even the name of the company that owns it. The name of the company that owns it is Brenner Enterprises, and Brenner Enterprises is owned by Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan's owned by Standard Oil, and Standard Oil is owned by the Lords of London. You can track it all back. You kind of get the idea after a while. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It's one of my jobs as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many of the people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I obtained was a man named David Crosby. Crosby, Still, Nash and Young. I saw David the day before Christmas last year, talked with him. I got him away from this witch that he had with him. He told her to go shopping. We were in West Hollywood, and I was witnessing around to people I knew. We went off in this store, and we started talking. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I'd like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, now I'll have to explain some of this when I'm done, because you're not going to understand it all unless you know something about music. I said, do they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, do they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now, I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He said, come on, Lance, you know what the reason is. I said, please, David, I don't want to guess. Tell me what the main reason is. He says, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. I'll explain what that means in a minute. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He says, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music. I said, thank you. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on, and it's placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in. This is why a master is cut months in advance before it's released. On the full moon, it's taken in to a temple room about the size of this auditorium that is in every one of the major music companies, behind locked doors up in the executive offices. And it's placed on an altar sitting in the north of the room, and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards and a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master. As I tell many Christian parents, you can go home and count your kids' records, probably yours too, and count.
And he was speaking at, I think it was the Prophecy Club, or wherever the hell he was, but I believe it was the Prophecy Club. And this is back in the 70s. So this is like 30, 35 years ago at a minimum. Okay, and some people have said, "Oh, John Todd's been just, I've seen evidence to prove blah 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 that he's a fake." Well, then show me the evidence. Email it to me at contact D. What is it? Down the rabbit hole. So, gee, I can't even remember. My brain is so filled with. My brain's doing about 300 miles an hour right now. Wait, what is it? Contact DTRH at yahoo.com. Wow. Contact DTRH@yahoo.com. Go ahead and send it to me, and I'll peruse through whatever evidence you might have. But until I see evidence to otherwise, and I'm not saying the guy's 100% accurate. He could be full of it. But it's interesting that he talks about this, and then you listen to other people like Shaka Khan in the music industry say what you heard her say earlier in the program, that it's demonic. Now, I'm not trying to convince you that everybody is bad and, everybody has horns and everything else, but this kind of stuff goes on, ladies and gentlemen. What I am urging you to do is go do the research for yourself. You'll see there's a connection between Penn State, Boys Town, and all this stuff. You'll see that the music industry and the pedophilia with the child stars and all this stuff, it all is connected at a much deeper, darker, disgusting level. And in order for us to get through this and get better, we need to excise this cancer. And we need to expose it, and we need to talk about it and not be so afraid to discuss it. And that's the truth.
Well, and also they've said that Kathy O'Brien was discredited. They've said Bryce Taylor was discredited. They've said all these people, for some reason, they're all discredited. And I'm wondering, okay, are they really discredited?
Have you ever seen the quote-unquote evidence? Because I haven't.
No, I haven't. All we have is people saying, well, that can't possibly be true. That just sounds like BS. Okay, well, a lot of things really do happen in the entertainment industry that a lot of people wouldn't even believe because it's so bad. So
yeah. And again, I'm not saying that you have to believe in it, but you have to understand that this is what they're doing and this is what they believe. You have to at least understand what you're dealing with. When I was a firefighter, it didn't matter if I liked fire or disliked fire. I had to respect the properties of fire. Look at it that way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. I want to thank Cherie for coming on and taking 2 hours out of her day. Cherie, thank you so much, dear.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, do your research, educate yourself. Mind Control, MK Ultra, Project Monarch, and more. Check out Vigilant Citizen and all the other stuff we told you about hour one. Thank you for listening. Check out Joe Joseph. I'm out. See you Wednesday.